everyone, this is Chris. Thank you for joining me. Today's video is about a card, and we're going to make a card for New Year because we still send cards to wish our best wishes for everybody for this new year. So, not everybody uses messages or internet. Our grandparents, some of our neighbors still want to have a physical card in their hands. And what I like about this card, or this one I just made, because I usually do them in batches of, 6 cards, it's that they're dimensional. You don't have this on your computer or on your phone. These are dimensional, they're bright, they're shiny, and honestly, it's not complicated to do. I really like the look of it. And you also have some, I hope you'll be able to see it. I can't see it on my camera because it's a bit small, but I also have put some little glitter around my flowers here, and we're going to use a few things today. So this is a very nice and easy card to do. What you will need for this, and I'm going to use a stamping tool. I'm going to use the Tonic Studio from Tim Holtz. You don't have to use this. It's just going to make your life a little bit easier. We're going to use Versamark, we're going to use Distress ink, we're going to use embossing powders, and double-sided tape, and of course some paper. So the paper I have decided to use is quite a thick paper because I want to have this dimension. If it's too thin paper, lightweight paper, you won't be able maybe to put it in shape. It's not going to stay with this very dimensional, but you can always use dimensionals underneath. I just use regular double-sided tape because it has already so much dimension. So a heavy cardstock and a normal, not natural, but it's a normal A2 size card here, and the part inside the white piece is just 1 inch smaller, so I have this little border around. So that's the only thing I'm going to use for my card. So I've got a scrap piece of paper here, and I'm going to use this to stamp my flowers. So this is not the right one. And I'm going to use these, stack up stamps. I did a video on how to use these. These are stamps that you need to lay over one of each other to have more dimension. I have a video, and I will put the link underneath if you really want to know how to use these. So I'm probably going to use, like I did the one I showed you before, just 2 of them, not 3. And I will show you why I want to do that. So the first one I'm going to do is the larger one, the one that is almost, clear everywhere. You need to emboss the whole thing. That's your base. And normally you would go from light to dark. But here I'm going to use embossing powders. So I'm going to do the opposite because that's the way I want to do it. You couldn't do this if you were for example, I was just using only my natural inks without embossing. If I was using this dark green I'm going to use for my first layer and then red, you would hardly be able to see the red. And after I'm going to use white, which you will probably not be able to see, especially with dye inks, maybe a little more with pigment inks, but it's not going to work. So this is why we're going to emboss the whole thing. So first I'm going to place my stamp here on my card, and I'm going to cut around it. I'm going to cut it with scissors because I don't have dies for this. So I'm just pressing down, make sure everything is on my plate, and I'm going to use distressing because with distressing you've got a little time to emboss with it. Okay, so make sure you've got all your materials ready, your inks, your embossing powders, and also your heat tool. So I'm really putting a lot of ink there. I think it's going to be good. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be layering. And I'm going to really press down hard. And I know distressings are not the best to stamp, but it's going to be good enough. And what you might want to use, because I'm going to use Versamark, is I'm going to use a watermark pen like this one. If you're making a mistake and you need to put a little bit, just a tiny space somewhere, and put a bit of embossing powder on top, I would recommend using this kind of tool. I don't recommend though this one, which is the blue kind, because you see here, my tip is blue, and this blue ink is supposed to go away after using it, but it doesn't. So really, if you can use the same brand, Versamark, or any other brand that is not colored, I would recommend it. But I just have this one, and because it's dark, I'm not going to see it. What is nice about embossing is that you can come back over and over again on what you've done and re-emboss on top of it. So I'm going to go and try to go quickly with this one before my ink evaporates. And I'm going to put, I've got zinc embossing powder, and I'm going to put it on top. If it did evaporate, I will just stamp on again with my Versamark. But I think it's going to be enough. And of course, don't throw away this powder. You're going to put it back into their container. Really, you're not going to use much. And I can already see that I don't have my powder everywhere. So I'm going to use this pen. And I'm going to come back here just to make sure I can emboss everywhere until the tip. All right. And because I'm going to cut it, even if I went out of my drawing or my stamping, it's totally fine. Oops, I'm going to put it back into my container. All right. And what I'm going to do also very quickly is to put the lid back on. Because if you're like me, please do that, because I've spilled so many on my table that now I really need to do that. And what I like to do, especially with some of my embossing powders, is sometimes when I put my heat gun straight on top, is that all the powder just goes away because I didn't maybe put enough Versamark. So what I like to do is heat it from the back of my paper, and it works like wonders, and you don't have that much flying around. I'm not going to bother with some of my embossing getting out of my sheet here since I'm going to cut it out, but it's not perfect. You can use an embossing non-static tool. One thing I like to do is heat it up for, at least 10 to 20 seconds if I haven't used it for a while, because I need my heat gun to be really, really hot. And by the way, you young people, if you're watching this video, don't use a heat gun. Ask a needle to help you, because you can burn yourself so hard with this one. It's even, I think, almost more dangerous, or at least you can burn yourself more than with a hot glue gun. So I'm going to let it heat, and then I'm going to emboss from underneath my paper, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, it's all done. I can see I don't have embossing everywhere, but it's going to be good enough because I'm still going to emboss more color on top of it. But if you feel you need more, I still think maybe I'm going to put a little bit more. It's not shiny enough. So I'm just going to use again this embossing pen. And when it's empty, don't throw it away. As long as your nib is good, just put a little bit of glycerin inside and it'll be good to go again. Yes, much better. Okay. All right. And again, it's not perfect, but you'll see that a big part of my green is going to be hidden by the red and the white I'm going to put on top. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to now ink, and I'm going to put red embossing powder, and I'm going to finish with the white. If you want to start with the white and finish with the red, that's totally up to you. But what I like to do here is just wait a little bit. This takes a few seconds. Make sure it's not completely hot or too hot before putting my stamp on top. I don't want my stamp to be burned. So now I'm coming exactly, or trying to be exact, on top of my previous stamped image. And the best way to do it is normally to put your eyes above it, but I've got my camera, so I'm just going to do it this way. And then I will just, for my last layer, little bit put it offset I'm going to use Versamark now. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to show you this in just a minute. I'm inking up my stamp with Versamark this time because I don't have the right red I really wanted. Back on top, pressing down, making sure everything, all my ink is transferring to my paper. Good. And now my red embossing powder. Any brand will do for this. I mix and match all my brands together. I always keep the same brand in the same container. I wouldn't probably change it, but I'm not sure it would do anything bad, but just in case. All right, look at that. It's already looking really great. And again, I'm going to heat it up. And there you go. Look at that. How beautiful does it really look? So you could stop here if you don't want to put any white. I just feel like I wanted to put a little bit of white to make it a bit more interesting. And I'm going to use the same stamp, but I'm just going to offset it just a little bit because otherwise I'm going to cover completely my, or I could use the other stamp. I could use this one as well, why not? But you can use the same and just, you know, offset it a little bit. Yeah, it's not hot. That's good. So I'm still going to offset it just a smidge, just a little bit. I think it's, or maybe that way, huh? No, it was okay that way. I'm going to turn it on the right just a tiny bit. There you go. Close it. Yeah, I'm always verifying that I put it the right side down. Okay. Ink it up really well. And remember, when you have this one, this pad is really old, but what I do when it's completely dry, I wash it with just some liquid soap, let it completely dry, and then when it's completely dry, I'm going to re-ink it with some glycerin and a little tiny bit of water, but usually I just use plain glycerin. Because glycerin can, even though it looks oily, it is soluble, water soluble. But usually I just use plain glycerin for my ink pad. Okay, good. And I never take the Versamark out of my stamp because it makes them stay juicy. Now I'm going to use my white, which kind of became a little bit, let's say beige. Over time. It's been a very long time that I had this one. I had two, and this one I haven't used it. That was my spare one, and I think it became, you know, it's not, you can see it's not completely white, but it's okay for this project. Okay, if I want it a little wider, I could do a second pass, but I'm going to leave it as is. But you see on this example here, I used twice the same stamp, so I have more white here, just because I use it twice. Here, my third layer is thinner, so I have less white. It's totally up to you. You know, play with your stamps. Don't be scared. It's just a little bit of ink and a little bit of paper. You're not going to waste. You're just making some experiences and see what you like best. And again, you can't see now all the little mistakes I had in my green background because there are so many layers on top. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some little scissors, pointy scissors, and I'm going to cut my flower out as close as I can, and I'll be back to show you the rest of the card. So see you in a second. Alright, I've cut my flower and I've also embossed some leaves. They come with these stamp sets, so I just went ahead and did 3 of them. You already understood how I did that. It's not complicated. So now I'm going to layer my white card on my red background. And I use my TG gun for this. Nothing fancy. I like to have a nice border around. I hope I'm centering it right. I think it's good. And now I'm going to see where I'm going to put all of these leaves. So first what I like to do is make sure that I have enough space here to put my sentiment on the bottom. I have season greetings because we have the whole month to send out our wishes to everyone. I think here it's going to be good. And because it's already really dimensional, I don't really need to put anything more. You could use dimensional foam stamps, you know, something dimensional on the back. I don't really think it's useful here. Just need to center it, not putting it too high, not too low. I think here is good. And now I'm just kind of verifying where I could put my leaves. I usually like to use odd numbers for this. I think it's not bad. Or maybe like this. If it's too big, you can always trim them down because it's underneath the flower. You're not going to see anything. And yes, I think it's going to be good this way. So I can do the same now with my leaves. Just putting a little bit here on the back. Don't need to put glue everywhere. And that's good. And the last one here. It is so easy. There you go. And because it's a heavy cardstock, again, I can't put them in shape. And what I also did on this one, you don't have to, I need to put more glue here, but I've put a little embellishment, and I'm going to use another one that I have made. These are made with hot glue and a little bit of glitter on top. And I'm going to do the same thing. A little bit of double-sided tape on the back and in the center. You don't have to do this. It's just because I wanted to bring a little extra bling here. And now I'm going to put my sentiment. I do it at the end. If you feel more comfortable doing this before, that's fine. I'm just using a very simple block here. It's not even acrylic. It's actually like glass, but it's plastic. Much cheaper than the acrylic blocks, honestly. And I just cut out this one. It's not perfect, but I have a big one for nothing. It costs pennies. I'm going to ink it with Versamark, and I'm going to then emboss it with some gold. And I like the new golds now because you've got, you know, antique gold. You've got yellow gold. Let me see where I want to put it. There. Yes, that's going to be perfect. And I have my little paintbrush that I'm going to use later to make sure I'm not going to have any excess. And now my embossing powder. This one is from Ranger. Okay, yeah, I'm going to need it. I would recommend using a anti-static pouches. I do my own, actually. Take your time when you do this, because I can see that I've got a little bit of embossing powder everywhere here. Probably pressed too hard also on my stamp, that's why. I prefer to use a little squish underneath. That's why usually when I stamp, I always put some foam underneath my image. I didn't do it this time. I really want to make this card look good, so I'm taking my time. If you want to fast forward this video, please do so. Just showing you in real time how long it can take. Using the anti-static pouch is going to make things much easier. There won't be this step to do. It's just that I have it, and I've just put a little bit of starch, cornstarch, in. Yeah, I better stop here. It's not going to be a perfect print, but it's going to be good. And I'm going to heat this one up again. And actually, I've burned my paper. I've burned it. I was too close. So this is something you should be aware of. Well, that's the good stuff. You know what? I can still take my paper here underneath off. But what I can see here is that this powder maybe is a bit old, but it needs much more heat and more time to heat it up than the zinc one. So I'm going to have to redo this, but it's a good example of what not to do. So I'm going to keep it in my video. I could redo the whole stuff, but I'm just going to show you this. Don't put it too close because you're burning your paper. So yeah, be careful with this, or maybe if your ink is too old, maybe it's better to think about changing it. But there you go. And one more little thing I have done to my card is putting a little bit of glue here and there. I'm still going to show this, because I'm not going to spoil that much. I've put some dabs, and I'm going to come a little closer here. Some dabs of little tiny drops of glue here. And then I have just put some glitter on top, because I really think it's going to make it even more shiny. I don't have really, except for my center, I don't have a lot of glitter. And even though Christmas is over, I still want to have glitter. I like glitter. And there you go. I hope you'll be able to see this. It's maybe the camera's not going to be able to see that, but you pick it up. But it's really shiny. You've got the glitter. Put it aside to make sure it's going to dry perfectly. And you could use also, you don't have to use white glue, even though this one is going to dry clear, but any kind of clear glue will do as well. So there you go. I hope you liked this video. Please give me some thumbs up. You can be inspired to offer this card. It's very simple, but I think it's really nice. It's very dimensional. I love it. So leave me your comments underneath. Give me a thumbs up, please. And also subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to hit the bell button and share on social medias. Thank you so much. Have a great year and see you soon. Bye-bye.